Good morning, everyone, and welcome back with another episode of Veterans in Politics. This is Jim Jonas with Frank Friends. On today's show, we have Sean Crawford, who's going to talk about the corruption in family court regarding Judge Bryce Duckworth. But before we get to Sean, first off, Frank, I just want to thank you for stepping in. Just so everybody knows, Frank is somebody who's dealt with family court as well. So it should be a really good interview because both gentlemen really understand the mess that is family court, particularly Bryce Duckworth, though, okay? So I don't want, not all judges are bad, but Bryce Duckworth, he's got some issues. Frank, you got anything you want to say before we get started?
Nah, just he was originally my first judge in my family court case that took forever, and then whatever happened, he got moved from courtroom 2 to courtroom 1, and then I got the courtroom 2 judge, and that took another 3 years to get custody. So it's fun in there.
Okay. Well, Sean, you want to, first off, thank you for coming in because these issues are not easy to discuss. So we really appreciate not just you, but everybody who's willing to come in and discuss family court with us. It's a very important issue. As you know, Veterans in Politics, particularly Steve Sanson, has really spearheaded trying to fix the family court system here in Las Vegas and basically nationwide. So Sean, with that being said, can you go ahead and just give a brief background about yourself?
Okay, I've been in Las Vegas for about 40 years. This is my second child. This is my second time around in family court, actually. Actually, it was back in 98. I actually got one judge voted out of office back in 98, Judge Luke. He was actually another corrupt individual. I actually ran a campaign against him for a year with people from Equal Rights from Divorced Father and got him out. So now with the second time around, I wanted to get some justice for my second child, and unfortunately that did not happen. Okay. So if I can go into my story.
Sure, just real quick though, for the viewers and listeners, are you currently married? How many kids do you have?
I have 2. I am currently divorced. And at this time, I've actually relinquished the rights to my second child because of what has occurred the second time around.
Okay, so let's go ahead and just start from the beginning. And you brought some documentation in regarding your case.
Yeah. Okay. So there's been so much stuff. I'm just going to read from this paper here because I want to get all the facts down so everybody understands what happened. So what happened was the mother and child were in another country. I signed immigration paperwork so they can come here. As soon as they got here, she did not allow me to see the child. I could not take the child with me, even go to 7-Eleven down for an ice cream. It was always supervised visitation. So I'd ask her, can we please let me have the child? And that did not happen, so I had to file and so I could have the child myself. I was actually meeting her at a park for 1 or 2 hours a week. She controlled where, how long, blah, blah. So I take her to court. Unfortunately, I received bad legal advice from my attorney, Roger Giuliani. We actually made a deal outside of court to have the child every other weekend, Saturday, Sunday. And unfortunately, I did not get holidays. So I asked Giuliani to do that. He actually signed the papers and it went through. So now I only have every other weekend with the child, no holidays. So I asked the mother, can we please give me holidays? Instead of the response, I actually got an email from a teacher, apparently, saying that there's some issues with my child. I figured out that it was not a teacher, but it was actually the ex forging an email to become the teacher, to try to get me in trouble with the court to make me look bad. So we actually went back to court, asked for Duckworth to give me holidays, which was granted, but he did not say anything to her about the forging. Okay, this is a felony to be forging to become somebody else. So after that, no sanctions, no contempt for forging emails. Okay, so now I get my holidays. I was ordered to pay $800 in child support a month. I actually asked to have custody of the child, and it was denied because Duckworth said the child had lived with the mother all this time and in his best interest to stay with the mother. In that time, my son was having, when he come to my house, he had severe meltdowns lasting hours and hours, occurring day and night. I can't live without my mom. screaming, yelling, tantrums. And my girlfriend is an actual ex-DFS caseworker. We documented all this stuff. We had hundreds of pages of notes. We took it to Duckworth saying, this is what's happening. We asked for therapy, which was denied for 4 years. And after 4 years, he approved it, but by the time he was 7, it was too late. The ex would actually call my son when I had him with me, constantly harassing. So my child would hear the phone ring and he'd start, like Pavlov's dog, he'd start reacting. Right. He's got my mom on the phone. So I had to go back to court again. So Duckworth actually stopped her from making phone calls. But with that, he also took away my phone calls now. So I could not speak to my child either for 2 weeks. So, of course, there was no lecture for this, nothing. So, financial disclosures. So we both had to sign financial disclosures telling what each of us made. Unfortunately, she would falsify her FDF, which is a financial disclosure, putting down car payments that were non-existent. I actually showed Duckworth this. He said nothing. So apparently, it's okay to do perjury in court and forge these documents. Again, he says nothing. So only one person is accountable. I guess the person who pays has to be truthful. So with that, also with this, so I was doing all the pickups and drop-offs at her house. She would come out to my car, and there would be some trouble sometimes. And at this one occasion, she actually got in the back of my car with the child and started making threats and things like that. I'm actually threatening my girlfriend. The other thing was she would send a lunchbox with pictures of herself so the child could open up the pictures and look at them and go crazy. I told her no more lunchbox. I set it on the ground. She started screaming, yelling. She also said that I ran her over with my car. The police came, which they did not. So now we filed a TPO against her, which was denied. So Duckworth now says, since there was an incident that happened, you can't get out of your car and she can't go out to the car either. So because something that she did again, I had to be held accountable for. Going back to the forged emails, she forged the email. He made us go on the OFW, which is the email that the court monitors, because something that she forged, I had to go on there too. The other thing was legal custody. Now I have legal custody of a child. She would never put me on schools, dentist's office, providers, so nobody knew who I was, and I had to call and put myself on this. Health insurance. What happened was she was originally on a PPO. I had to pay for the child's health insurance. Immediately after the health insurance was approved, she turned it into HMO, which is cheaper. So for 3 years, I did not realize that this was going on. So I paid $120 a month for 3 years, which actually racked up to $4,200. So we told Duckworth, hey, we're paying her. So instead of the $4,200 he gives me back, he gives me back $450, saying, oh, the time you discovered it, we're only going to give you that money back. So for the 3 years prior to that, I had to pay $120 extra, so you got to keep that money. I do not understand why I did not get all my money back for her stealing it. Therapy. We actually, finally, Duckworth did grant us therapy. Unfortunately, the mother decided to sabotage the therapy, called the therapist outside of the office hours and talked to her. So we got released from this person. We actually got to a second therapist. Before we even got in there, she started making waves and we got kicked out before they even happened. Now, here's another one, CPS. She called CPS on me because my child had a small injury. He had a nursemaid's elbow. He fell down. And it's a very common injury for toddlers. The ligament pops out. She says, I did it on purpose. They called CPS. It was screened out. Nothing happened there. We asked Duckworth to look at this. She also downloaded a video of how to make a report to CPS. On her webpage, we found that we brought it to his attention. He said nothing. Unfortunately, a few years later, which is just October, now my child has accused me of beating him. He went to school, to a school counselor, a mandated reporter, and told them that I was beating the child. So the CPS was called again. Of course, that was screened out. So in that time, the mother decides to withhold the child from me for 4 months. I haven't seen my child for 4 months now. So we finally get back into court. Duckworth realizes that there was nothing happened on that CPS call. It was screened out. So then he sanctions her for $4,200. Well, I got the money back. I got $2,600, excuse me. After the 4 months, the child would come back to my house. Of course, now he's brainwashed. He doesn't want to come here anymore. I should sell my house, give him and his mother the money. Her attorney was accusing me again of beating and torturing a child, and it was madness. So, of course, that was screened out. Oh, sorry.
Oh, you're fine. It's okay.
Again, nobody is held accountable at this time. So now the child's coming back to my house saying he doesn't want to come anymore. So now
Take that pause you
Sure,
real quick since you're not okay. So just to kind of catch back up. So from the very beginning to where we're at right now, what's the time period for that?
That is about 3 years.
It's about 3 years.
About 3 years.
How many roughly? How many times did you appear in front of Duckworth?
About 10 times,
that
I'd say.
period of time.
About 10 times. You know, there was little things that go on, like the getting in the back of the car, the insurance. So there was, you know, and it wasn't every 6 months. It was maybe every year we go back.
Yeah.
So maybe twice a year. So there was just things that build up, so we had to go back. You know, we let things build up, and we go back, and hopefully we get something. And we really get nothing from this guy. He would not hold this woman accountable, in contempt. She's forging emails. She's stealing money, holding a kid from me. It's also, the other thing is, she's now going to my family, neighbors, and friends, saying bad stuff about me, alienating. Pretty much.
I got a question. Did you guys ever sign the behavioral agreement, the standard behavioral agreement? Duckworth gives it to everybody.
I believe we did, but actually we did not. No, we did not.
He's always given that to everybody. It's standard in the beginning. Once you guys get custody, that you sign the Nevada standard behavioral agreement, which she would be in violation of by talking to everybody about you.
Right. She'd go on Facebook, email people even out of the countries, even some family members I didn't even met.
Yeah.
She'd go and, you know, they call it building a village, alienating the other parent, you know.
Yeah.
Even my mother,
It's in the
sister,
code class.
my mother, sister, and daughter, I don't even talk to them because of this person. So another thing is, so my child would come on the weekends to my house. So he befriended some kids down the street, play video games with them. He contacted them video games. The ex got on that video game and contacted those children's mother through the video game, so she can actually spy on me. They actually invited my son and the mother to her house up in Summerlin. It's people she's never met before. My neighbors in my neighborhood. She's never been to my neighborhood. She's bringing these people to her house up there. So it's a constant invasion of your personal life. You know, it should be separate now. You're divorced now.
Right.
But she decided to constantly intrude. So with that, another thing is she also would ask for a passport. She was from another country. She would ask for a passport. I deny it because who knows, she probably would never come back with the kid. So one time she submitted airline tickets to this court saying, I want to take him to a whale watching trip in Canada. But we figured out those airline tickets were fake. So she falsified fake airline tickets to give to the judge. We figured out, showed him in black and white, and he said nothing. He said absolutely nothing about that.
Did she file those actual documents?
Yes, they were filed in
So
court.
that's perjury
Yes,
and burglary.
there you go.
In the state of
There
Nevada.
you go. He said absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
No accountability, nothing. Okay. So with all this, I actually filed a motion to disqualify Duckworth back in 21.
Okay.
And of course it was denied. Okay. That's fine. However, we actually, so somehow or another, my personal information got placed on a website, and I started getting a text from somebody asking me about Judge Duckworth, blah, blah. Okay, it sounded like somebody was interested in him. Next thing you know, the text started getting a little bit sinister.
Right.
So we figured out there's somebody actually harassing me now. So we figured out it was actually the people from Nevada Court Watchers, a gentleman named David Schoen. He actually worked for Jennifer Abrams' firm.
That name sounds familiar.
Yeah, just a little. My blood pressure went up quite a bit right then.
So he actually started texting me, harassing me about this guy, Duckworth. I'm like, who are you? So he's just some random guy texting me out of the blue, asking me about some judge. We figured out it's David Schoen and those people at Nevada Court Watchers.
How did he get your number?
Well, unfortunately, I gave this document to Mr. Sanson, and he stuck it on the website, and I didn't realize my number was on the bottom. I redacted all the information, but my number was on the bottom, and then Mr. Schoen decided to take my number and call me from that. It was only up on the website for an hour, and I realized, take it down, take it down. He took it down quickly, but unfortunately, somebody found my number. With that, I also started getting, my attorney got an email from somebody named Marshall Willick, who actually runs, supposedly, he's the architect of family court here, 40 years here doing his deeds. This person emailed my lawyer and was actually threatening me, saying he was going to expose me and say I'm a vexatious litigant.
Vexatious litigation.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I was saying, wait a minute, how does an attorney who's not even on my case email me threatening me? So I actually wrote Mr. Willick back and I shoved it down his throat. Yeah. Haven't heard from him since. So we know that Duckworth and Willick are pretty good friends. There's documentation that they kind of work together outside of court. Right. So now he's having Willick threaten me through emails, which is kind of insane if you ask me. So fast forward, so when the child came back after the 4 months, things really started to go bad. I actually asked for relinquishment, which I was granted September 22nd. So I am out. I don't have the child anymore. No more child support either. So with all this that happened, I figured that everybody needs to know what's going on down there because this is not right. This is not right.
Well, and thank you for bringing up, well, one of the things about when we talk about family court, we've had a lot of people say, well, you guys are a little too hard on these judges because there is so much involved, right? Well, yeah, there is. But the issue that I have specifically about family court is like every time you got a case, not every time, but most of the time, you got a case that's been way drawn out, which we all know it's to be 6 months, that gets really drawn out, and you get stories like this. It's always the same people's name that keep popping up. So when we talk about corruption in family court, it's because it's almost like a mob down there. So it's like the judges and the attorneys are all in it together, as well as court-appointed therapists. So that's where the issue is like you can't get out that, it's really hard to get outside that clique to actually get justice.
Well, like you said, my kind of issue with this, and this is no way legal advice from veterans in politics. This is Frank Friends. I went through this for 4 years. If somebody files documentation in the courtroom and they know that it's false documentation, like the emails and the plane tickets, that's not just perjury. In the state of Nevada, going into a building with the intent to commit a crime such as perjury is also burglary. We know a guy suffering from that. And these judges, I've pulled it on my case. You couldn't pull it on yours. It's real simple. You can't litigate from the bench. It's burglary because you plan to do it. You falsified documents, that's burglary. It's also perjury. Then it's contempt of court. And you should be held accountable to all those standards. You can't litigate from the bench. And they do. With family court, they take so many I'm going to throw that to the wind. You know what? That's not as serious as you're making it.
It's one of the reasons why you have people like Marshall Willick and certain attorneys that keep popping up in family court, because Steve and I know so many lawyers that they won't even touch family court. If you come to them with a family court case, they're like, good luck, because even as lawyers, we don't know the rules.
Yeah. Well, it's not even the rules. Like, he's dealing with it. I dealt with it. You've seen other people deal with it. Here's the rule, Your Honor. This is perjury. This is burglary. This is contempt of court. This is the law. Here's the NRS code. Here's what it says. 1 to 3 months locked up for breaking this law. Well, we don't want to do that to the child. Well, now the child's suffering mental breakdowns. Now the child's suffering alienation of a parent. Now the child's suffering playing games with either side, whether the mother or the father. You know what I mean? So now you're taking these children and you're putting them in, not only, it's already a bad situation. Any court case is a bad situation unless it's solved amongst the parties themselves. And now you as a judge are just hyping it up. Who's this child get to turn to? Because the one parent's alienating him from the dad. He can't turn to the dad, can't turn to the mom, can't turn to counseling because mom screwed that up. You as the judge need to be there for the child. I'm sorry, forget both parents, but be there for the kid. And they're not even doing that.
So you still got some more there. Did you want to finish that up or?
That was kind of it. I kind of wrapped it up. I mean, like I said,
because I just wanted to go. Okay, so when did you originally go in front of Duckworth?
That was back in 16, so 7 years ago. Yeah,
so 7 years ago. So then you relinquished custody. Yes. Is that what you did?
Yes. After all this, I decided to relinquish because I actually had to take pictures of my child because they were saying I was beating him. So every time I sent him back to the mother's house, I had to take pictures of him and give it to her. And then I have to also, because now the child would say, he'd go back to school, and as soon as he get back to school, he'd go to the nurse, I'm sick, I have a temperature, blah, blah. So then I get turned around by the mother, you sent him to school sick. So then I had to start taking his temperature, photographing that, and then sending it to the mother. And then, of course, that's not his temperature, that's yours. And then the kid's sick at school. So it's not a winning situation.
Like Munchausen's by proxy.
Yes, that's exactly what it was.
So would it be fair to say that because of all so essentially what I'm hearing, I'm paraphrasing, is because of all these ridiculous loopholes that are making you jump through, then you finally got frustrated to the point where you were willing to give up custody?
Yeah, because...
Do you get to see, or do you get any visitation at all?
No, not now. I don't. I can't make any contact with the child. He can initiate with me, but I cannot with him. Because what was happening was they were actually trying to get me for beating the kid, torturing.
Right.
So it would have been my behind on the line.
Yeah.
There's only one person going to be on the fire line, that's me.
Yeah.
And I mean, if I'm in jail, what good am I as a dad? Right. Especially if it's false information, false documentation. They're trying to, false accusations.
We have another child to take care of too, correct?
But she's older.
Doesn't
25.
matter. You're still the dad. You still have to be there.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how old they get.
Right. Yeah. I mean, how can you be a dad when you're sitting in jail, especially if you've got all these accusations against you? Now you have to defend yourself constantly against this person,
So, but hey, here's another thing too. Do you think it would have helped in your case if there would have been a jury?
If there was an injury to the child?
No, there was a jury.
Oh, a jury,
at
yes.
least
Yes.
we've also talked about.
Yes.
We've also talked about not only having a jury because they're supposed to, right, but if nonetheless, because they always bring up cost, and in family courts it's too difficult to figure out, so they don't think jurors can, they're insulting the public, or maybe even just a tribunal. So it's not just Duckworth.
Right. The problem with that is how much, it's going to cost this amount of dollars to do this. But isn't that offset by helping the child and making them a productive member of society?
Yeah, you would think so.
Because right now, my child has gone to taking a dive.
Well, not just that, but now you wouldn't have to have as much counseling, as much litigation, as much judge time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but there you go. There's their money pool.
Yep.
Yeah.
I hate to be sarcastic, but I swear I think
to me it's real simple. If me, who's not an attorney, can come into your courtroom and lay down the law for you, which I've done. You got the videos on veterans and politics.
I know.
And you as a judge, you'd be like, well, that is the law, but I'm not going to do that because, it's just long litigation and it drags the... I'm not worried about dragging the trial out. I'm worried about getting justice and the law being followed. Right. And if you do that, like you said, then the money pool gets shorter because now the cases get shorter. The settlements get shorter. The attorney's fees get shorter. Less judges. Less time out there. And I mean, how many times did we go to veterans and politics, go to court to watch court, and there's 12 courtrooms up top and 8 were closed? And we went every Tuesday, so you knew we were coming. So you're going to be closed the one day you're about to be watched. I talk about, we don't have court cases this day. So 52 times a year, you don't have court cases on Tuesdays? Yeah. Like, you're already taking the taxpayers' money.
So Mr. Crawford, what would you like to see going forward? What would you like to see them do with Bryce Duckworth? Or how do you think we can?
Well, number one, he shouldn't even be on the bench, to tell you the truth. We tried to have him voted out, but nobody ran against him back in 2020. I also have a website on him, too. It's called voteagainstjudgeduckworth.com, so you can check that also. You can contact us. We can get you that website. Remember I said I tried to get a motion to disqualify Duckworth before? We also asked for the jury trial also. We know
What did they, just out of curiosity, what did they say when you asked that?
The jury trial?
Yeah.
They said there's no jury trial here at all. So it was immediately kicked out. And that's when Schoen got my number. So they said, this does not happen here in this state. So you're immediately just shut down. So nothing happened.
Yeah. Well, we're working on it.
That's what should happen, because there shouldn't be one person doing this.
Right.
There should be several people that are not, because what do you have a jury trial when you have a criminal case, right? You have 12 people off the street that determine your fate. Right.
They don't know
determine
the
your
law.
fate. Look at the facts.
Yeah.
Look at the facts. At the end of the day, you're really helping this kid. Forget about me and mom. Right. You got to help this kid, because when he grows up.
So ultimately, you said this went on for what, about 7 years?
7 years, correct. Yes.
So this is what ends up happening to you. So it goes on for 7 years, costs you X amount of dollars,
A lot.
right?
Yep.
And then you end up with not having your son anyway.
Right. Yep. And again,
he basically gets end up with threatened to, hey, at one false accusation, you can go to prison and lose everything you have.
And on top of that, I got some attorney who's not even on my case calling me up and threatening me. Right. You know, at the end of the day, my safety and security were at risk here. Okay? And at the end of the day, I've got to separate myself, because if there's no me, hey, you know, I'm sitting in jail and people are really looking at you saying, who is this guy? And that's not me.
Well, then you go to jail and the only thing they're going to hear is that you did something to a kid somewhere. They ain't even going to know that it's a family court case and it was some false litigations. They're going to be like, oh, you heard a kid? Yeah, we'll see you later in the showers.
Yeah, see you there.
All right, Mr. Crawford, is there anything else you'd like to discuss?
Well, I just want everybody out there to realize what's really going on.
Do me a favor. Go ahead and look in the camera. Mark's going to zoom in on you. And then just any final words you want to say to make people aware, and just anything you want to say in closing.
Okay. I just want the public to know what's really going on down in family court, because at the end of the day, it's really your child that's at risk here. Okay. We want to keep families together. We don't want to create this dysfunction anymore. We already have enough problems in the world. We don't need to create any more, especially for people who are greedy, who just want money and power. That is absolutely wrong. So we need to fix this. So I just want the public to know this is what's going on. Remember, voteagainstjudgeduckworth.com. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, that's Sean Crawford discussing the corruption in family court, specifically dealing with Bryce Duckworth. Frank, any last words?
I know you think it's not going to happen to you, but if you have a child on the way, get paperwork done ahead of time. Have something you both agree to. The further you keep these judges and attorneys out of your business, the better your business will be later on. Maybe you mend that relationship. Maybe you don't. But you sure as hell won't have somebody above you telling you what day you can see your kid and what time you can call your kid and how much money that kid's worth to that system. Keep your kids and your families out of these systems.
And I just want to add, in closing, everybody knows by now how we feel about Marshall Willick. Okay? 2 names that ever pop up when you're dealing with any kind of court cases, whether it be family court or any other court, if you hear Marshall Willick or David Schoen, they're pro-judge. Right. It does not matter what that judge does. So you hear those 2 names, stay away. With that being said, that's Frank Friends with Jim Jonas for another episode of Veterans in Politics. Until next time.